Welcome back to Goo for Science. As you know, we've been working with ethanol to make disinfectants, and we're looking for impurities that would prevent them from being pharmacy grade. So, how do we figure out what impurities are sticking around? We ask Fina. She does GC.
GC is gas chromatography. It basically makes your sample into a gas, runs it through a long tube, and then burns it in a flame and measures the carbons that come out the other end.
So Fina, tell us about how the GC column works.
So the column is about 30 meters long right now, and it's a very fine capillary. So the diameter inside that tube is about the diameter of a cow hair. Ooh. The inside of the column has a film on it, and that film will react with some of the compounds in your sample. So some of the compounds are more volatile and aren't really interested in that film, and they'll just zip on through. And some of the compounds are a little bit heavier and slower, or they react more with the column and they kind of want to party for a little bit before coming out near the end of your run.
And then at the end of the run, you've got a detector. What happens there?
So once the gases start leaving the column, they go into a flame ionizer detector. As the gases go into that, there's a hydrogen flame that burns them and creates ions, and then those ions are collected, and it basically counts how much electricity it produces when it burns.
Okay.
So the detector doesn't actually know what the compound is, but it knows that there's a certain amount of signal related with it. So the detector reads the signal as it comes out, and it plots that versus time. And you'll see it'll be nothing at the bottom, and then you end up with a peak where that first compound comes out. And you can see that there's lots of signal strength, and then it comes back down off again.
And those will be the lightest ones?
Those are the light ones. In our case, usually that's methanol. And then you get your nice big ethanol peak after that. And then the impurities we're interested in come after. And those peaks are quite small, but because it's a sensitive instrument, we need to know if there is those impurities in there. And the concentrations that are okay for humans are quite low.
Yeah. So we've been really worried recently about acetaldehyde.
Right.
How much of that are we seeing?
Am I allowed to say?
I think so.
Okay, we're seeing about 80 parts per million.
Yeah, and we want it to be below, the threshold is what?
10.
Okay. So that's our current problem, is we're trying to figure out how to get that 80 parts per million to be 10 parts per million using different techniques that we're working on. We've got a synthetic chemist going, doing his magic thing, and we've got a few other processes that are being worked on to try to solve this problem. So that's been our major function for the last 2 or 3 weeks, has been getting in samples, doing the USP workup, figuring out where our materials do and don't meet USP standards. That's United States Pharmacopeia. And so when you get like a bottle of hydrogen peroxide or rubbing alcohol from the grocery store and it says USP, that's a set of standards that we're testing by. So these samples come in, we make a list of problems that they do or don't have based on these tests, and then we start going through and solving those problems. And once we get them all addressed, then we have a product that's USP grade. We're not certified to, or we're not accredited to certify these things, but we know how to do the tests and get it out the door. So that's what we've been doing, and we've been doing pretty good at it so far. We got a bunch of bottles out to the hospital last week, and that was the tour that I showed you guys. And now we're working with a direct source, a producer of ethanol, to make sure that at the factory, at the distillery, they're getting pharmacy grade product out of the tap. That's our current dream goal, to get this place up and running 40,000 liters a day of pharmacy grade ethanol. And this GC is part of that test. So in the future, maybe we'll get to show you some of the other tests that we do. We've kind of got Tim the Hurricane whirling through the rest of the tests to figure out, there's things like residue, UV absorbance, clarity, just a whole laundry list of stuff that he just churns out, and it's been insane, an insane amount of work on everybody's part in the group to get this stuff going. So we're super thrilled to be producing ethanol for pharmacy use, and hopefully this can continue as a local source for local product, that when things like supply chains get disrupted, then we're not hurting so bad. Thank you so much for watching Goo for Science. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and keep an eye on our channel for content on Thursdays.